We are live.
Happy Hump Day. Uh, I am old new dude. That is Sammy, and
Richard York, Ash just reborn son.
I got attacked.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, he's just
yeah,
definitely being quieter now.
that's all right. If my Sammy does that to my face, there'll be bite marks all over the spot. Um, Update on my land and trailer. I went by there yesterday. They did the septic tank and drainage field, so that is one more thing out of the way. I think all we got left is uh, a final grade around the trailer, leveling things out, porches, final inspection, and then our inspection and taking keys. So that should go pretty quick, I hope. But as I was telling Richard, it's still a lot of packing and cleaning here, packing and cleaning. I told my wife she has two options today. She can either clean and pack while I'm gone, or she can go get Carter, and she chose to clean and pack while I was gone. And I explained to her that that does not involve sitting down, drinking coffee, looking at the phone, smoking a cigarette, drinking more coffee, and looking at the phone. That she would actually have to clean and pack. So she slapped me. Uh, Today is Danny 5. Uh, and I know I said it the other Monday, but I did not realize how few Danny chapters there's been in this
Oh
book.
yeah. Oh yeah. And there's some people that complain that there are people that tell you that there's only one good season of Game of Thrones, and that's because they feel like they didn't do a good job with Danny in the second one, right? And most of us, I think, would argue that the first four seasons of Game of Thrones are pretty good and reasonably faithful to the books. Um, but you definitely will occasionally run into people that will specifically say, no, no, no. After the first season, it went downhill, and they'll often point at Danny in the second season.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of Danny in the first one.
You got to come and look at how you're dressed.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I had a shirt on that I was cleaning and packing in that I just picked up, and it was a dirty shirt. I didn't feel like putting a clean shirt on to get dirty again. And my wife's like, "Oh, you better change that." I'm like, "Oh, nice call." So I went and grabbed a shirt, the quickest one I could find. This was it. If I'm in a swamp down in Florida, I want to be seen. So there, Jeffrey. Uh, sorry, but so she slapped me. Yeah, that's basically that was our wedding vows. If you see any of these, we start with the brains of the operation, which is Richard. He will say what he saw in the chapter, and then I'll jump in with my stupid stuff. And congratulations to Jeffrey for being first today.
Yep.
Good job.
Yep. And Lizzie says the shirt counts as one, and it's a Danny chapter, so the shirt is Lemongate. But Lizzie would argue that Lemongate and Ned Nashara are just all part of Triplet Targaryens. The
There you
real
go.
story. Anyway.
And he is also drinking lemonade today.
Yes, I am. I got lemonade to go with my lemon shirt here. Anyway, introducing Strong Belwas and Arston Whitebeard. She was breaking her fast on a bowl of cold shrimp and persimmon soup when Eerie. I said last time that Jeekwe had the same letters as Sansa. That's not quite right. She has a silent H, so it's a little different. But you get the idea anyway. Eerie's Arya and Jeekwe is Sansa. Shrimp and persimmon soup when Eerie brought her a Carthene gown, an airy confection of ivory samite patterned with seed pearls. Take it away, Dany said. The docks are no place for ladies' finery. If the milkman thought her such a savage, she would dress the part for them. When she went to the stable, she wore faded sandsilk pants and woven grass sandals. Jeekwe had braided her hair Dothraki fashion and fastened a silver bell to the end of the braid. I've won no victory, she tried telling her handmaid when the bell tinkled softly. Jeekwe disagreed. You burned the Magi in their house of dust and sent their souls to hell. That was Drogon's victory, not mine, Dany wanted to say, but she held her tongue. The Dothraki would esteem her all the more for a few bells in her hair. She chimed as she mounted her silver mare, and again with every stride, but neither Ser Jorah nor her blood riders made mention of it. To guard her people and her dragons in her absence, she chose Ricardo. Jogo and Ago would ride with her to the waterfront. So Ricardo is the Eric. He has all the same letters as the word Eric. Ago is the arrow. Ago is kind of like arrow, but I got nothing for Jogo and the whip. But other than he's the other one, so Anyway, try to keep it straight. Try to keep it straight. Jogo's the one that doesn't use the letters of Eric and doesn't sound like arrow, so he's the whip. I don't know. I don't know. If you got any pointers on remembering Jogo is the whip, then go for it. But otherwise, that's what I'm going with.
Works for me.
They left the marble palaces and fragrant gardens behind and made their way through a poorer part of the city where modest brick houses turned blind walls to the street. Pale men in dusty linen skirts stood beneath arched doorways to watch them pass. They know who I am and they do not love me. Dany could tell from the way they looked at her. So Jorah would sooner have tucked her inside her palanquin, safely hidden behind silken curtains, but she refused to. She reclined too long on satin cushions, letting oxen bear her hither and yon. At least when she rode, she felt as though she was getting somewhere. It was not by choice that she sought the waterfront. She was fleeing again. Her whole life had been one long flight, it seemed. She had begun running in her mother's womb and never once stopped. How often had she and Viserys stolen away in the black of night, a bare step ahead of the usurper's hired knives? But it was run or die. Xaro had learned that Pyat Pri was gathering the surviving warlocks together to work ill on her. I do think that Pyat Pri is a likely person, but I kind of think that Xaro would be my second choice in terms of who's hiring assassins to go after her.
Well,
Anyway.
I mean, I imagine he wants her dragons and he wants her gone.
Right. And so the question that the Dragon Man says we should always ask is who benefits, right? And so you could see that, but the thing is, as far as we know, there's no actual tries at Ricardo, and so it doesn't seem likely that he's trying to. It does seem more like Pyat Pri is wanting everybody to know the warlocks are still to be feared, and so he does benefit from this. I'm just saying my second choice would be well, first get rid of Dany and as many of her people as we can, and then go after Ricardo and the dragons. Anyway,
Yeah.
Dany had laughed when he told her, "Was it not you who told me warlocks were no more than old soldiers vainly boasting of forgotten deeds and lost prowess?" Zara looked troubled. "And so it was then, but now I am less certain. It is said that the glass candles are burning in the house of Urathon Nightwalker, that have not burned in 100 years. The fact that it says that have not burned in 100 years, to me, kind of implies that may not be Euron, because who is this? Where's this place with the 100 years of glass candles and so forth? But I get why people think it's that Urathon is Euron. Anyway, ghost grass grows in the garden of Gehan. I don't know. Phantom tortoises have been seen carrying messages between the windowless houses on Warlock's Way, and all the rats in the city are chewing off their tails." That last one's a little weird. "The wife of Mathos Malaruan, who once mocked a warlock's drab moth-eaten robe, has gone mad and will wear no clothes at all. Even fresh washed silks make her feel as though 1,000 insects were crawling on her skin." That sure sounds like it's some other problem, but anyway. And blind Sebastian, the eater of eyes, can see again, or so his slaves do swear. A man must wonder. He sighed. "These are strange times in Qarth, and strange times are bad for trade. It grieves me to say so, yet it might be best if you left Qarth entirely, and sooner rather than later." Zara stroked her fingers reassuringly. "You need not go alone, though. You have seen dark visions in the Palace of Dust, but Zaro has dreamed brighter dreams. I see you happily abed with our child at your breast. Stay with me around the Jade Sea, and we can yet make it so. It is not too late. Give me a son, my sweet song of joy." "Give you a dragon, you mean?" "I will not wed you, Zaro." His face had grown cold at that. "Then go."
Hey, I got
Where?
a quick question.
Yeah.
If that is Euron, when they're at the docks, do we get a description that could be anywhere close to the silence? I mean, all
that's
of
an
it,
interesting question. I don't think so, but we'll have to keep our eyes open.
right? I mean, all that's happening in Qarth. Then
Yeah, I think I deliberately kept all the ships and stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I deleted some sentences here and there, but
Okay.
I think I kept all the ships. But where? Somewhere far from here. Well, perhaps it was time. The people of Urkalisar had welcomed the chance to recover from the ravages of the Red Waste, but now that they were plump and rested once again, they began to grow unruly. Dothraki were not accustomed to staying long in one place. They were a warrior people, not made for cities. Perhaps she had lingered in Karth too long, seduced by its comforts and its beauties. It was a city that had always promised more than it would give you, it seemed to her, and her welcome here had turned sour since the House of the Undying had collapsed in a great gout of smoke and flame. Overnight, the Carthene had come to remember that dragons were dangerous. No longer did they vie with each other to give her gifts. Instead, the Tourmaline Brotherhood had called openly for her expulsion, and the ancient Guild of Spicers for her death. It was all Zaro could do to keep the 13 from joining them. I feel like I'm always so busy watching for Bravosi's ships, I hadn't thought to watch for Silence ships. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But where am I to go? Sir Jorah proposed that they journey farther east, away from her enemies in the Seven Kingdoms. Her blood riders would sooner have returned to their great grass sea, even if it meant braving the Red Waste again. Dany herself had toyed with the idea of settling in Vaes Teloro until her dragons grew great and strong, but her heart was full of doubts. Each of these felt wrong somehow. And even when she decided where to go, the question of how she would get there remained troublesome. Zaro Zoan Daxos would be no help to her. She knew that now. For all his professions of devotion, he was playing his own game, not unlike Pyat Pri. The night he asked her to leave, Dany had begged one last favor of him. An army, is it? Zaro asked. A kettle of gold? A galley, perhaps? Dany blushed. She hated begging. A ship, yes. Zaro's eyes had glittered as brightly as the jewels in his nose. I am a trader, Khaleesi, so perhaps we should speak no more of giving, but rather of trade. For one of your dragons you shall have 10 of the finest ships in my fleet. You'd only say that one sweet word. No, she said. Alas, Zaro sobbed. That was not the word I meant. Would you ask a mother to sell one of her children? Why ever not? They can always make more. Mothers sell their children every day. Not the mother of dragons. And, well, there's some truth there. The mother of dragons cannot make more, right? At least not that she knows of.
Yeah.
Not even for 20 ships? Not for 100. His mouth curled downward. I do not have 100, but you have 3 dragons. Grant me 1 for all my kindnesses. You will still have 2 and 30 ships as well. 30 ships would be enough to land a small army on the shore of Westeros, but I do not have a small army. How many ships do you own, Zaro? 83 if one does not count my pleasure barge. And your colleagues in the 13? Among us all, perhaps 1,000? And the Spicers and the Tourmaline Brotherhood? Their trifling fleets are of no account. This is really interesting. Even so, she said, tell me, 12 or 1,300 for the Spicers, no more than 800 for the Brotherhood. So I infer these ships are somehow less capable, right? Because 1,300 plus 800 is more than twice the previous number being of no account. So how can it be of no account if it's twice the previous number, right? Compared to perhaps 1,000, It only makes sense if their ships are like dramatically inferior, so that they don't even count because the ships are just not good. And the Ashai, the Bravosi, the Summer Islanders, the Ibbenese, and all the other peoples who sail the Great Salt Sea, how many ships do they have altogether? Many and more, he said irritably. What does this matter? I'm trying to set a price on one of the 3 living dragons in the world. Dany smiled at him sweetly. It seems to me that 1/3 of all the ships in the world would be fair. Zaro's tears ran down his cheeks on either side of his jewel-encrusted nose. Did I not warn you not to enter the Palace of Dust? This is the very thing I feared. The whispers of the warlocks have made you as mad as Malaran's wife. 1/3 of all the ships in the world? Pah! Pah! I say. Pah! Dany had not seen him since. His seneschal brought her messages, each cooler than the last. She must quit his house. He was done feeding her and her people. He demanded the return of his gifts, which she had accepted in bad faith. Her only consolation was that at least she'd had the great good sense not to marry him. The warlocks whispered of 3 treasons, once for blood, and once for gold, and once for love. The first traitor was surely Mirri Maz Dur, who had murdered Khal Drogo and their unborn son to avenge her people. Could Pyat Pri and Zaro Zoan Daxos be the second and the third? She did not think so. What Pyat did was not for gold, and Zaro had never truly loved her. Yeah, this whole 3 treasons thing is, other than making her paranoid, it doesn't seem to serve much purpose. Anyway.
Much like Varys' whispers in the Mad King's ear had made him mad.
Right. And it's we've mentioned before that the triple Shakespeare quote specifically starts off with King Lear, and so it's probably it probably is intended to be King Lear that she's emulating. The streets grew emptier as they passed through a district given over to gloomy stone warehouses. Aga went before her and Jogo behind, leaving Sir Jorah Mormont at her side. Her bell rang softly, and Dany found her thoughts returning to the Palace of Dust once more, as the tongue returns to a space left by a missing tooth. Child of three, they had called her, daughter of death, slayer of lies, bride of fire. So many threes, 3 fires, 3 mounts to ride, 3 treasons. The dragon has 3 heads, she sighed. Do you know what that means, Jorah? Your Grace, the sigil of House Targaryen is the 3-headed dragon, red on black. I know that, but there are no 3-headed dragons. The 3 heads were Aegon and his sisters, Val and Dany.
There you go.
Visenya and Rhaenys, she recalled. I'm descended from Aegon and Rhaenys through their son Aenys and their grandson Jaehaerys. Blue lips speak only lies. Isn't that what Zara told you? Why do you care what the warlocks whispered? All they wanted was to suck the life from you. You know that now. Perhaps, she said reluctantly. Yet the things I saw, the dead man in the prow of a ship, a blue rose, a banquet of blood. What does that even mean, Khaleesi? A mummer's dragon, you said. What is a mummer's dragon, pray? So, worth noting that Dany described the flower as a blue rose. Presumably that means she recognized that it was a blue rose. People will sometimes point out that it doesn't say blue rose during the vision, but it says it's a flower, and clearly she recognized that it was a rose, so it is a blue rose. Anyway, just throwing it out there because I have heard people try to write off the flower as not a blue rose. I do think that it's supposed to be a blue rose. At the time she sees that vision, Jon is already off with Qhorin Halfhand, about to join the wildlings. He's nowhere near the wall. He's certainly not going to be associated with the wall in Dany's mind then. He's probably not going to be associated with the wall in Dany's mind when she gets to Westeros. It would be very unfair for the blue rose to be Jon Snow. Anyway, it should be Dany, not Jon.
Yeah, it's funny how you say, which I agree, she recognized what a rose looked like. But
that's actually 4 with the earlier mentions of the video.
She says that a great stone-winged beast takes flight or something like that.
Right, and doesn't call it a dragon.
Doesn't call it a dragon. And she knows what a dragon looks like.
Okay, fair enough. A cloth dragon on poles, Dany explained. Mummers use them in their follies to give the heroes something to fight. So Jorah frowned. Dany could not let it go. He is the Song of Ice and Fire, my brother said. I'm certain it was my brother, not Viserys, Rhaegar. He had a harp with silver strings. Sir Jorah's frown deepened until his eyebrows came together. Prince Rhaegar played such a harp, he conceded. You saw him? She nodded. There was a woman in a bed with a babe at her breast. My brother said the babe was the prince that was promised and told her to name him Aegon. Prince Aegon was Rhaegar's heir by Ellie of Dorne, Sir Jorah said. But if he was this prince that was promised, the promise was broken along with his skull when the Lannisters dashed his head against a wall. I remember, Dany said sadly. They murdered Rhaegar's daughter as well, the little princess. Rhaenys, she was named, like Aegon's sister. There was no Visenya, but he said the dragon has 3 heads. What is the Song of Ice and Fire? It's no song I've ever heard. I went to the warlocks hoping for answers, but instead they have left me with 100 new questions. By then there were people in the streets once more. Make way, Aggo shouted, while Jogo sniffed at the air suspiciously. I smell it, Khaleesi, he called. The poison water. The Dothraki distrusted the sea and all that moved upon it. Water that a horse could not drink was water they wanted no part of. They will learn, Dany resolved. I braved their sea with Khal Drogo. Now they can brave mine. Karth was one of the world's great ports. Its great sheltered harbor a riot of color and clangor and strange smells. The waterfront was one great marketplace where the buying and selling went on all day and all night, and goods might be had for a fraction of what they cost at the bazaar if the man did not ask where they came from. Aggo gave an urchin a copper for a skewer of honey-roasted mice and nibbled them as he rode. Jogo bought a handful of fat white cherries. Elsewhere, they saw beautiful bronze daggers for sale, dried squids and carved onyx, a potent magical elixir made of virgin's milk and shade of the evening, even dragon's eggs, which looked suspiciously like painted rocks. As they passed the long stone, and George certainly wants us to realize that things aren't always what they appear and so forth, right? But anyway,
yeah.
As they passed the long stone quays reserved for the ships of the 13, she saw chests of saffron, frankincense, and pepper being offloaded from Zarro's ornate vermilion kiss. Beside her, casks of wine, bales of sour leaf, and pallets of striped hides were being trundled up the gangplank onto the Bride in Azure to sail on the evening tide. Of course, that's bright blue, so this is a bride in blue, or potentially a Liana reference.
Right.
Farther along, a crowd had gathered around the Spicer galley's Sunblaze to bid on slaves. It was well known that the cheapest place to buy a slave was right off the ship, and the banners floating from her masts proclaimed that the Sunblaze had just arrived from Astapor on Slaver's Bay. Dany would get no help from the 13, the Tourmaline Brotherhood, or the Ancient Guild of Spicers. She rode her silver past several miles of their quays, docks, and storehouses, all the way out to the far end of the horseshoe-shaped harbor where the ships from the Summer Islands, Westeros, and the 9 free cities were permitted to dock. She dismounted beside a gaming pit where a basilisk was tearing a big red dog to pieces amidst a shouting ring of sailors. Ago, Jogo, you will guard the horses while Sir Jorah and I speak to the captains. As you say, Khaleesi, we will watch you as you go. It was good to hear men speaking Valyrian once more, and even the common tongue, Dany thought as they approached the first ship. Sailors, dockworkers, and merchants alike gave way before her, not knowing what to make of this slim young girl with silver gold hair who dressed in the Dothraki fashion and walked with a knight at her side. Despite the heat of the day, Sir Jorah wore his green wool surcoat over chainmail, the black bear of Mormont sewn on his chest. But neither her beauty nor his size and strength would serve with the men whose ships they needed. You require passage for 100 Dothraki, all their horses, yourself, and this knight and 3 dragons? Said the captain of the great cog, ardent friend, before he walked away laughing. When she told Lyseni on the trumpeter that she was Daenerys Stormborn, Queen of the 7 Kingdoms, he gave her a dead-faced look and said, Aye, and I'm Lord Tywin Lannister and shit gold every night. The cargo master of the Mirish galley Silken Spirit opined that dragons were too dangerous at sea, where any stray breath of flame might set the rigging afire. The owner of Lord Pharaoh's belly would list dragons, but not Dothraki. I'll have no such godless savages in my belly. I'll not! The 2 brothers who captained the sister ships Quicksilver and Greyhound seemed sympathetic and invited them into the cabin for a glass of Arbor Red. They were so courteous that Dany was hopeful for a time, but in the end, the price they asked was far beyond her means. It might have been beyond Xaro's. Pinch-bottom Peto and slow-eyed Maid were too small for her needs. Bravo was bound for the Jade Sea, and Magister Manolo scarce looked seaworthy. So yeah, we're not seeing any references there that would sound like the silence.
Yeah, I didn't see none either.
As they made their way toward the next quay, Sir Jorah laid a hand against the small of her back. Your Grace, you are being followed. No, do not turn. He guided her gently toward a brass seller's booth. This is a noble work, my queen, he proclaimed loudly, lifting a large platter for inspection. See how it shines in the sun? The brass was polished to a high sheen. Dany could see her face in it. And when Sir Jorah angled it to the right, she could see behind her. I see a fat brown man and an older man with a staff. Which is it? Both of them, Sir Jorah said. They've been following us since we left Quicksilver. The ripples in the brass stretched the strangers queerly, making one man seem long and gaunt, the other immensely squat and broad. A most excellent brass, great lady, the merchant exclaimed. Bright as the sun, and for the mother of dragons, only 30 honors. The platter was worth no more than 3. Where are my guards? Dany declared. This man is trying to rob me. For Jorah, she lowered her voice and spoke in the common tongue. They may not mean me ill. Men have looked at women since time began. Perhaps it is no more than that. The brass soul ignored their whispers. 30? Did I say 30? Such a fool I am. The price is 20 honors. All the brass in this booth is not worth 20 honors, Dany told him as she studied the reflections. The old man had the look of Westeros about him, and the brown skinned one must weigh 20 stone. The usurper offered a lordship to the man who kills me, and these 2 are far from home. Or could they be creatures of the warlocks, meant to take me unawares? 10, Khaleesi, because you are so lovely. Use it for a looking glass. Only brass this fine could capture such beauty. It might serve to carry night soil. If you threw it away, I might pick it up, so long as I did not need to stoop. But pay for it? Dany shoved the platter back into his hands. Worms have crawled up your nose and eaten your wits. 8 honors, he cried. My wives will beat me and call me fool, but I am a helpless child in your hands. Come, 8. That is less than it is worth. What do I need with dull brass when Xaro's Owen Daxos feeds me off plates of gold? As she turned to walk off, Dany let her glance sweep over the strangers. The brown man was near as wide as he looked in the platter, with a gleaming bald head and the smooth cheeks of the eunuch. A long curving eric was thrust through the sweat-stained yellow silk of his belly band. Above the silk he was naked, but for an absurdly tiny iron-studded vest. Old scars crisscrossed his tree-trunk arms, huge chest, and massive belly, pale against his nut-brown skin. The other man wore a traveler's cloak of undyed wool, the hood thrown back. Long white hair fell to his shoulders, and a silky white beard covered the lower half of his face. He leaned his weight on a hardwood staff as tall as he was. Only fools would stare so openly if they meant me harm. All the same, it might be prudent to head back toward Jogo and Ago. The old man does not wear a sword, she said to Jorah in the common tongue as she drew him away. The brass merchant came hopping after them. 5 honors! For 5 it is yours! It was meant for you! So Jorah said, a hardwood staff can crack a skull as well as any mace. 4! I know you want it! He danced in front of them, scampering backward as he thrust the platter at their faces. Do they follow? Lift that up a little higher, the knight told the merchant. Yes, the old man pretends to linger in a potter's stall, but the brown one has eyes only for you. 2 honors! 2! 2! The merchant was panting heavily from the effort of running backward. Pay it before he kills himself, Dany told Sir Jorah, wondering what she was going to do with a huge brass platter. She turned back as he reached for his coins, intending to put an end to this mummer's farce. The blood of the dragon would not be herded through the bazaar by an old man and a fat eunuch. A Qartheen stepped into her path. Mother of dragons, for you! He knelt and thrust a jewel box into her face. Dany took it almost by reflex. The box was carved wood, its mother of pearl lid inlaid with jasper and I looked this up. Chalcedony, I think it is. It's definitely Cal, like almost like Khal Drogo. You are too generous. She opened it. Within was a glittering green scarab carved from onyx and emerald. Beautiful, she thought. This will help pay for our passage. As she reached inside the box, the man said, I am so sorry, but she hardly heard. The scarab unfolded with a hiss. Then he caught a glimpse of a malign black face, almost human, and an arched tail dripping venom. And then the box flew from her hand in pieces, turning end over end. Sudden pain twisted her fingers. As she cried out and clutched her hand, the brass merchant let out a shriek. A woman screamed, and suddenly the Qartheen were shouting and pushing each other aside. Sir Jorah slammed past her, and Dany stumbled to one knee. She heard the hiss again. The old man drove the butt of his staff into the ground. Ago came riding through an egg seller's stall and bolted from his saddle. Jogo's whip cracked overhead. Sir Jorah slammed the eunuch over the head with the brass platter. Sailors and whores and merchants were fleeing or shouting or both. Your Grace, 1,000 pardons, the old man knelt. It's dead. Did I break your hand? She closed her fingers, wincing. I don't think so. I had to knock it away, he started, but her blood riders were on him before he could finish. Ago kicked his staff away, and Jogo seized him around the shoulders, forced him to his knees, and pressed a dagger to his throat. Khaleesi, we saw him strike you. Did you see the color of his blood? Release him. Dany climbed to her feet. Look at the bottom of his staff, blood of my blood. Sir Jorah had been shoved off his feet by the eunuch. She ran between them as Eric and Longsword both came flashing from their sheaths. Put down your steel! Stop it! Your Grace? Mormont lowered his sword only an inch. These men attacked you. They were defending me. Dany snapped her hand to shake the sting from her fingers. It was the other one, the Qartheen. When she looked around, he was gone. He was a sorrowful man. There was a manicore in that jewel box he gave me. This man knocked it out of my hand. The brass merchant was still rolling on the ground. She went to him and helped him to his feet. Were you stung? No, good lady, he said, shaking, or else I would be dead. But it touched me. Aye! When I fell from the box, it landed on my arm. He'd soiled himself, she saw, and no wonder. She gave him a silver for his trouble and sent him on his way before she turned back to the old man with the white beard. Who is it that I owe my life to? You owe me nothing, your Grace. I am called Arstan, though Belwas named me Whitebeard on the voyage here. Though Jogo had released him, the old man remained on one knee. Ago picked up his staff, turned it over, cursed softly in Dothraki, scraped the remains of Manticore off on a stone, and handed it back. And who is Belwas? She asked. A stick can crack a skull as well as any mace. Just ask the Titan's bastard. Tap, tap of approval. The huge brown eunuch swaggered forward, sheathing his eric. I am Belwas. Strong Belwas, they named me in the fighting pits of Meereen. Never did I lose. He slapped his belly, covered with scars. I let each man cut me once before I kill him. Count the cuts, and you will know how many strong Belwas has slain. Dany had no need to count his scars. There were many. She could see at a glance. And why are you here, strong Belwas? From Marine, I am sold to Cohor, and then to Pentos, and the fat man with sweet stink in his hair. He it was who sends strong Belwas back across the sea, and old Whitebeard to serve him. The fat man with sweet stink in his hair. Illyrio? She said. You were sent by Magister Illyrio? We were, your grace, old Whitebeard replied. The Magister begs your kind indulgence for sending us in his stead, but he cannot sit a horse as he did in his youth, and sea travels upset his digestion. Yeah, sure they do. We know he goes back and forth and talks to Dorcas.
Yes.
Earlier he had spoken in the Valerian of the Free Cities, but now he changed to the common tongue. I regret if we caused you alarm. If truth be told, we were not certain. We expected someone more regal? Dany laughed. She had no dragon with her, and her raiment was hardly queenly. You speak the common tongue well, Larston. Are you of Westeros? I am. I was born on the Dornish marches, your grace. As a boy, I squired for a knight of Lord Swan's household. He held the tall staff upright beside him like a lance in need of a banner. Now I squire for Belwas. And part of the point of Jorah's skepticism here is that not only is it unusual for someone that old to still be squiring, but knights aren't allowed to become squires, and Dunk thinks to himself that his only option is to become a squire. He's supposed to tell us that he's not a knight. Anyway, and of course, there's an argument that neither is Barristan, because most likely, or he's no more of a knight than Dunk is, because most likely, Dunk is the one that knighted Egg, and then Egg would have knighted Barristan, and then therefore he's only a knight if Dunk is a knight.
Okay, that makes sense.
A bit old for such, aren't you? Sir Jorah had shouldered his way to her side, holding the brass platter awkwardly under his arm. Belwas's hard head had left it badly bent. In this description, it starts off with, Jorah had hit him over the head with it, and then Jorah's knocked off his feet, so it was not very effective.
Yeah. And Jorah's not a little man.
Yep. Not too old to serve my liege, Lord Mormont. You know me as well? I saw you fight a time or two. At Lannisport, where you near unhorsed the Kingslayer, and on Pike there as well. You do not recall Lord Mormont? So Barristan is actually surprised that Jorah doesn't remember him. It's almost as if a famous Kingsguard with some extra hair would be unrecognizable. Anyway, I suppose that's a sea triple Targaryen's episode 6.
Yeah,
as well be explicit there, right? So Jorah frowned. Your face seems familiar, but there were hundreds at Lannisport and thousands on Pike, and I am no lord. Bear Island was taken from me. I am but a knight. And I doubt that there were people Barristan's age that were squiring during the war. Like that, he would probably have noticed. Anyway,
yeah.
A knight of my Queen's Guard. Dany took his arm. And my true friend and good counselor. Yeah, sure he is. She studied Arston's face. He had a great dignity to him, a quiet strength she liked. Rise, Arston Whitebeard. Be welcome. Strong Belwas, Sir Jorah, you know. Coago and Jogo are blood of my blood. They crossed through my waist with me and saw my dragons born. Horse boys, Belwas grinned truthfully. Belwas has killed many horse boys in the fighting pits. They jingle when they die. How goes Eric left to his hand? Never have I killed a fat brown man. Belwas will be the first. Sheath your steel, blood of my blood, said Dany. This man comes to serve me. Belwas, you will accord all respect to my people, or you will leave my service sooner than you'd wish, and with more scars than when you came. The gap-toothed smile faded from the giant's broad brown face, replaced by a confused scowl. Men did not often threaten Belwas, it would seem, and less so girls a third his size. Dany gave him a smile to take a bit of the sting from the rebuke. Now tell me, what would Master Illyrio have of me that he would send you all the way from Pentos? He would have dragons, said Belwas gruffly, and the girl who makes them. He would have you. Belwas has the truth of us, your grace, said Arston. We were told to find you and bring you back to Pentos. The 7 kingdoms have need of you. Robert the Usurper is dead, and the realm bleeds. When we set sail from Pentos, there were 4 kings in the land, and no justice to be had. Joy bloomed in her heart, but Dany kept it from her face. I have 3 dragons, she said, and more than 100 in my Khalasar, with all their goods and horses. It is no matter, boomed Belwas. We take all. The fat man hires 3 ships for his little silver-haired queen. Can't a king make a knight independent of whether or not he was knighted? Debatable. I don't know the answer. I wonder if that has ever come up. Actually, it's likely that kings are always knighted before they become kings, I imagine, or when they become kings. It is so, Your Grace, Arston Whitebeard said. The great Cog Sedulian. At one point, I think I tried to look up what these names meant. The great Cog Sedulian is berthed at the end of the quay, and the galley's summer sun and Joseph's prank are anchored beyond the breakwater. 3 heads has the dragon, Dany thought, wondering. I shall tell my people to make ready to depart at once, but the ships that bring me home must bear different names. As you wish, said Arston. What names would you prefer? Vagar, Daenerys told him. Meraxes and Balerion. Paint the names on their hulls in gold letters 3 feet high, Arston. I want every man who sees them to know the dragons are returned. Gives me chills. Anyway, up next, Clash 64, Arya 10, Escape.
Pretty good little chapter for Dany.
Yeah, it's actually not that long. It's barely more than one note.
Yeah, but it's definitely still slower pace than the fighting ones were.
Yeah, like Lizzie says, I would think they would almost always be knighted before, just to have titles and prestige enough to be called king, like how Anne Boleyn and her family were raised way up in order to be queen, sort of deal. Yeah, that's kind of my point. Is I would think that they would, as part of seeking to establish their legitimacy, even if you were a little boy when you became king, you'd probably be fairly quickly knighted, I would imagine.
Yeah.
What else is going on in the world?
No idea. Packing, cleaning, and packing.
I feel like there was. No, I didn't. That was an interesting idea, but I couldn't find any proof of it.
What was that?
Preston had proposed that he had claimed that Arya had heard that where did you get those? I actually ordered it from Preston.
He meant the real one.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Did you get him at Dorn or Bravos?
I think Tyros, right?
There you go.
Tyros. Taroshi lemons. Anyway, I don't know. It could be Dorne, I suppose. Symbolically, they're Dorne. I like to think that Dany is symbolically from Dorne and born in Dorne, even if she actually grew up in Tyros.
Our lives where men believe they reside.
Is there a comment I'm not seeing? Is there a comment I'm not seeing? Oh, okay.
No. Well, you're saying that she believes that she was raised in Dorne, and I said,
oh, okay.
Power resides where men believe it resides.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, the perception is reality, and if they're symbolically Dorne, and if she's born in Dorne or believed to be born in Dorne, then she's symbolically from Dorne, even if she wasn't raised in Dorne.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense. I do think that it is interesting how all the Lyanna symbolism is thrown at you, and almost all of it's thrown at you in Dany's chapters, and yet people are like, "Oh, this means Jon Snow." How does that mean Jon Snow? It doesn't make any sense for it to be Jon Snow to Dany. I don't understand that. Anyway,
until the books come out, and even after the books come out, they'll still be saying the same thing.
Yeah, Springsteen in Chicago tonight. Tickets available. Son thinks I'm too disabled to climb to the nosebleed seats. Oh, does that mean he's going to upgrade you?
Yeah.
As long as he pays for the upgrade, you know.
You have to let us know on the next live stream how the concert is, please.
Let's see. Anything else? Can't think of anything else that we need to discuss. Preston had started to say that he thought that he seemed to think that Arya was discussing Catelyn grabbing Tyrion, but I don't see that in Arya's. I was searching through the Arya chapter, that Arya 3 in game, and I don't think they make any mention of that. He was claiming that Yoren. Well, we know that Yoren specifically hides the fact that it's Dorcas that he's working for, right? And so he was postulating that he would have told Dorcas before he told Ned, but I don't see any. I don't. Maybe I missed it. I didn't like pull up the chapter and read through it. I was just doing a search of Eyes and Fire and typing in some stuff and stuff. So I didn't check, but I don't think that there is any reference to that. I don't think that there actually is a clue there. I mean, it's definitely true that he's deliberately not telling us who wanted Gendry taken out, right? So
Right.
so that's true. Sister asked if she should read the books before watching the show. I said books first. I don't know. I kind of like to see the images of that are going to be wrong first, because I don't know. There's an argument that it depends on how visual a reader you are. It might be better to read them first if you're a really visual thinker, to try and get the picture without the bias. I could see that for some people. Lizzie definitely says book. So I'm in the minority in this opinion, but I kind of like if there's going to be a conflict in my head, then you watch the show and judge hard. Yeah, and maybe watch Preston's "What You're Missing" section too, right? Because it's a that's a really good series, especially for the first 4 seasons. Like, it doesn't make any sense after 4 seasons. I don't know. He still tries.
There
He
could
does a
be
pretty
an
decent job.
there could be an argument made to watch the show first, because if you read the books first and then watch the
Yeah,
show's going to be a letdown. If you
right.
watch the show first, you're
And
going
then
to
read the
enjoy it,
books. Then
and
it's
then get to the books and like, oh, the
yeah,
books are
yeah.
way better.
That's a good take. I like that. Um, yeah. Plus having the smaller story with fewer characters first might help you too. I could see that too.
Yeah.
So there are some reasons for the show first, but there's also some reasons for, especially for people who are, if you read the books and get a good picture. I mean, it's certainly vivid language, and so if you read the books and get a good picture in your head without the bias of the show, um, figuring out what that looks like to you could be good. Like I said, it kind of depends on how visual thinker you are and so forth. I kind of like to see the visuals first, because they're not going to match, and at least that way I'm not judging them badly. So I like I feel like I tend to get disappointed in the visuals if I see that, if I read something before I watch an adaptation.
Now,
Anyway,
in the defense of watching the show first, I got to see what Jamie looks like watching season 1 first and then reading the books. Uh, I thought I'd point that out.
okay. Where's Lady Thistle? She's the judge.
Yeah, actually, she is. We were sitting there. We were using her as Google going down the road yesterday. We had a question we'd asked Lady Thistle, and of course she'd already looked it up before for one reason or the other, and would give us the answer.
Is there a Song of Ice and Fire questions?
Not just random world life questions.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well, I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah, we're at 43. My brain is on packing and cleaning, so I do
The Arya
apologize.
chapter is pretty long too, right? This Arya chapter is actually, it's quite. I think it's even longer. But, it's just to try and convince them to leave and then figure out how to do that. So,
well, I mean, he did change up the pace after.
yeah, it's deliberate that they're supposed to be slowing down here.
Yeah. All right. Well,
it's one of the things. One of the things that's so great about this book is that pacing, right? The rapid fire pace of the Blackwater, followed by the slow down and so forth. I mean, it's just this book is a really nice pace, and I kind of think it has the best ending. I know that the first book ends with two of the most dramatic moments, right? The birth of dragons and the King of the North. So it's I get that those are, arguably the two best moments in the entire series. So how could that not be the best ending? How could that not be the best book? Type of arguments you can certainly make, but and of course it's the only book that really stands on its own, and so you can. There's lots of reasons to say that that's the best book, and probably nobody ever says this is the best book, but I really like Clash. I like the fact that it really establishes the whole parallel story structure, and it has, I think that it's the most George ending, right? It's the bittersweet ending that he gives you in it. The kind of the hope and anyway. So I
mean, stop
really
think about it. Back when he originally planned it as a trilogy, he would stick clues in a lot faster, thinking it was going to be a shorter story. And as the story kept going on and on, he's like, "Well, I've already said that clue. I've already done that clue."
Yeah, that's
so
another thing. Is
get further and further apart.
Yeah, in the first three books, especially, I feel like anything that's there is something that was sort of originally intended, because he wrote these so close together that people are like, oh well, George decided to add that, and he wasn't really thinking about that. And I'm like, I feel like he had a pretty good feel for all the first three books right at the beginning, right? And maybe some of the details were fleshed out a little more as he went, but when I hear people say, oh well, he wasn't thinking anything. I'm like, no, I think with the first three, he pretty much had it all planned out.
Oh yeah.
He let it grow after that.
Yeah, definitely. Aria 10, which is twice as many chapters as Dany.
Yep.
Same bat time, same bat channel on Friday. I appreciate everybody coming out with us today. Sorry that my brain is kind of elsewhere right now. I got a little bit going on with trying to get ready for the move, and apparently
is the house empty?
Getting mine? No, we have a ton of stuff.
It's not. I thought maybe it's not getting sparse. You haven't moved it. You haven't moved anything over yet?
Slowly but surely. No, we haven't gotten keys for the new place yet.
Okay.
So everything is in the garage or behind me in my man cave. Yeah, it's boxed up, but still here, which still puts it in the way. But I was telling a couple of y'all, I have to go around and either take pictures or do a walkthrough video for the rental company of where we're at, and that's tomorrow. So I'm getting last minute things done to be able to do that. So yay me.
Thanks, Lizzie.
Thanks, Lizzie. All right, appreciate everybody. Thanks again. Thanks, Richard. We will see all of y'all on Friday. Wish me luck on the video walkthrough on the house, and y'all be good. Bye.
Have a good one.